You know, some secrets are meant to stay buried, hidden away in dusty corners, locked behind heavy lids, wrapped in yellowed tissue paper that crinkles like autumn leaves. But life has a way of bringing the past back to the surface, doesn't it? I never thought I'd tell this story. Never thought anyone would need to hear it. But here I am, 83 years old, sitting next to this old cedar chest that's kept my deepest secret for 60 years. And now my granddaughter Emma is getting married next month, and she's been searching everywhere for the perfect wedding dress. If only she knew what was right here, waiting for her all along. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. From that summer in 1964 when I was 23 and thought I knew everything about love and life. I was Margaret Sullivan then, not the Margaret Henderson you all know now. I worked as a secretary at the downtown law firm, Montgomery & Associates. It was a good job for a young woman in those days, respectable, steady. My parents were proud. Our Margaret, working with all those important men, my mother would tell her friends at church. But it wasn't the important men who caught my attention. It was Samuel. Samuel Washington. He was the janitor at our building. Came in every evening after we'd all gone home. Well, almost all of us. I had a habit of staying late, trying to impress Mr. Montgomery with my dedication. That's how I met him, this tall, gentle man, with the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. The first time he spoke to me, I was crying at my desk. It was a Thursday evening in July, and I'd just gotten off the phone with my mother. She was pressuring me again about marrying Robert Peterson, the banker's son. A good match, she kept saying. Stable, respectable. What more could a girl want? Samuel appeared beside my desk like a shadow, holding out a clean handkerchief. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "you look like you could use this." I should have just taken it, said thank you, and sent him on his way. That would have been the proper thing to do. But something in his eyes, they were so kind, so understanding. Before I knew it, I was telling him everything about Robert, about my parents' expectations, about feeling trapped in a life that didn't feel like mine. He listened, really listened. Not like the men I knew who were always looking over your shoulder for someone more important to talk to. Samuel looked at me like I was the only person in the world who mattered. "You know what I think," he said when I finished. "I think you deserve someone who makes you smile the way you're smiling right now." And I was smiling. Despite my tears, despite everything, I was smiling. That's how it started. Night after night, I'd stay late at the office, and Samuel would find reasons to clean near my desk. We'd talk about books. He was reading James Baldwin, and I was working through Jane Austen. We'd discuss music. He loved jazz, and I was discovering that I did too. We'd share stories about our families, our dreams, our fears. He wanted to be a teacher. Did you know that? Samuel had his degree from Howard University, but in 1964, in our little southern town, a black man with a teaching degree was still just a janitor to most people. It broke my heart, the waste of it all. Here was this brilliant, beautiful man, and the world couldn't see past the color of his skin. I fell in love with him. Completely, utterly, helplessly in love. Not the polite, practical love my parents expected me to have for Robert, but the kind of love that makes you feel alive in your very bones. The kind that makes you want to be better than you ever thought you could be. One night in September, as the leaves were just starting to turn, Samuel walked me to my car. We'd been doing this for weeks, always careful, always keeping our distance. But that night, under the streetlight in the empty parking lot, he stopped. "Margaret," he said, and the way he said my name was like music. "I know this is complicated. I know it's not. It's not what people expect. But I care about you, more than I should, maybe. More than is wise." I kissed him then, right there under that streetlight. I kissed him like my life depended on it, and in many ways, it did. Because for the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. We started meeting in secret. There was a little diner on the outskirts of town where nobody we knew would go. We'd sit in the back corner, sharing coffee and planning our future. Because we did plan a future. You see, we were going to get married. Samuel was going to apply for teaching positions up north, where things were, well, not easy, but easier. We'd leave this small town and its small minds behind. In November, he proposed. Not with a ring. He couldn't afford a ring on a janitor's salary, but with a promise. A promise that he would love me every day for the rest of his life. That he would work every day to deserve me. That he would never give up on our dream of a life together. I said yes. Of course I said yes. I knew I couldn't tell my parents. Not yet. They'd need time to adjust, to understand. So I kept our secret and started planning in silence. I saved every penny I could, and in February of 1965, I took the train to Atlanta. There was a dress shop there, run by a French woman named Madame Dubois. She created the most beautiful wedding gowns you'd ever seen. I told her I wanted something timeless, something that would look beautiful in photographs years from now, something my children and grandchildren would admire. She created this silk organza with French Alencon lace, hand-sewn pearls, a chapel train that flowed like water. It took her 4 months to complete. The dress was ready in June. I kept it hidden in my bedroom, taking it out only when my parents were away, holding it against myself in the mirror and imagining my wedding day. Samuel and I had set the date for August 15th. We were going to have a small ceremony at the colored church across town, then leave immediately for Chicago, where he'd been offered a position at an elementary school. But secrets have a way of coming out, don't they? Especially in small towns where everyone knows everyone else's business. It was a Tuesday morning in July when everything fell apart. I was at work, typing up a contract for Mr. Montgomery, when my father burst through the office doors. His face was redder than I'd ever seen it, his hands shaking with rage. "Margaret Elizabeth Sullivan," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the office. "You get your things, and you come home, now." Someone had seen us. Mrs. Henderson from the bank, ironically. The woman I'd eventually marry into the family of Cat, had driven past the diner one evening and seen Samuel and me holding hands across the table. She'd told her husband, who told his golf partner, who told his wife, who told my mother at the grocery store. The ride home was silent. My father gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles went white, and I could hear my mother crying in the back seat. When we got to the house, they sat me down in the living room like I was on trial. "How long?" my father asked. "How long what?" I replied, though I knew exactly what he meant. "How long have you been involved with that boy?" That boy. That's what they called Samuel, this educated, gentle, wonderful man who was twice the person most of their friends would ever be. "That boy, his name is Samuel," I said quietly. My father's hand slammed down on the coffee table so hard, the lamp shook. "I don't care what his name is. You will not see him again. You will not speak to him. You will not even think about him. Do you understand me? I love him, Daddy." The words hung in the air like a challenge. My mother gasped as if I'd struck her, and my father's face went from red to purple. "Love," he spat. "You think this is love? This is an abomination. Think about what you're doing to this family, to our reputation. Think about your future children, Margaret. What kind of life would they have? What kind of world would they live in?" "They'd live in a world where love matters more than skin color," I said. That's when my father told me I was no longer his daughter. That if I pursued this madness, I would be dead to him. My mother begged me to come to my senses, to think about Robert Peterson, who was still waiting for me. Still willing to marry me despite the rumors. They locked me in my room. Actually locked me in, like I was a child again. Took away my car keys, my purse, everything. My mother brought me meals on a tray and begged me to choose family over this fantasy. But I could see Samuel from my bedroom window. He came every night and stood across the street, just looking up at my window. Sometimes he'd raise his hand slightly, and I'd press my palm against the glass. And for a moment, it felt like we were touching. On the 10th night, he wasn't there. I waited by the window until dawn, but he never came. I later learned that my father and some of his friends had visited Samuel at his apartment. They'd made it very clear that if he ever came near me again, if he ever even looked in my direction, there would be consequences. They told him I didn't want to see him anymore, that I'd realized my mistake and chosen to marry Robert Peterson instead. They made him believe that I'd given up on us, on our love, on our future. I never got to tell him the truth, never got to explain. They kept me locked up for 3 weeks, and when they finally let me out, Samuel was gone. He'd left town in the middle of the night, taking nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart. I wore this dress to my wedding to Robert Peterson on September 12, 1965, but it felt like a costume, like I was playing a part in someone else's life. Every step down the aisle, I was thinking about Samuel. Every vow I spoke, I was wishing I was saying them to him. Robert was a good man. He didn't deserve a wife who was in love with someone else. But I was numb, you see. I'd lost the love of my life, and I was just surviving, going through the motions of the life my parents wanted for me. I had your father 9 months later, then your Uncle James 2 years after that. I threw myself into being a mother, a wife, a pillar of the community. I baked for church socials and volunteered at the hospital. I smiled and laughed and pretended to be happy. But every night, I'd come up here to this attic, and I'd look at this chest. Inside, I kept everything from my time with Samuel. Letters he'd written me, a book of poetry he'd given me, a photograph we'd taken in that diner, the only picture I had of us together. And I kept the dress I'd really wanted to wear, the one I'd bought for my wedding to Samuel. I never had the heart to throw it away, but I couldn't bear to look at it either. So I wrapped it in tissue paper and locked it away, along with all my dreams of what might have been. This is the only picture I have of him. We were so careful about being seen together, but that day at the diner, the owner's daughter had one of those instant cameras. She thought we looked so happy. She insisted on taking our picture. Look at us. Look how young we were, how full of hope. I'm wearing that blue dress you always said was your favorite, Emma. The one with the small flowers. And Samuel, ... He's wearing his Sunday best, his hair perfectly combed, his smile so bright it could light up the whole room. I kept track of him over the years. It wasn't easy, but I had ways. I learned that he'd moved to Chicago, just like we'd planned. He became a teacher, just like he'd dreamed. He married a lovely woman named Dorothy in 1968, and they had 2 children together, a son and a daughter. I'd imagine sometimes what our children might have looked like. Would they have had his eyes and my stubborn chin? Would they have been tall like him, or short like me? Would they have inherited his love of books and music? But those were dangerous thoughts. I had a life to live, a family to care for. Your father was a good man, and he deserved a wife who was present, not one who was always looking backward. Still, I'd come up here whenever the weight of my secret became too much to bear. I'd sit beside this chest and remember what it felt like to be truly, completely alive. To love someone so much that you'd be willing to leave everything behind for them. Your father died 5 years ago, as you know, and after the funeral, when everyone had gone home and the house was quiet, I came up here and opened this chest for the first time in decades. I held this dress and cried for everything I'd lost, everything I'd given up. But I also felt something else. Relief. After 58 years of marriage, I was finally free to remember my first love without guilt. Free to honor what Samuel and I had shared, even if it had been brief. I tried to find him then. With the internet and all these new ways of finding people, I thought maybe, but I was too late. Samuel had passed away 3 years earlier. Dorothy had died the year before that. Their children had grown up and moved away. I'd missed my chance to tell him that I never stopped loving him, that I never chose Robert over him, that I would have run away with him in a heartbeat if I'd been given the choice. But life doesn't always give us the choices we want, does it? Sometimes we have to live with the choices other people make for us. Sometimes we have to find ways to honor our loves in silence, in secret, in the hidden corners of our hearts. When Emma told me she was getting married, I was so happy for her. She'd found someone who loves her for exactly who she is. David doesn't care that she's stubborn, or that she laughs too loud, or that she cries at commercial. He loves all of it, all of her. And when she said she was having trouble finding the perfect wedding dress, something in my heart shifted. I thought about this dress, about the love it represented, about the dreams it held. This dress was made for love. Real love. The kind that makes you want to be brave, to fight for what matters. Emma has that kind of love. She deserves to wear a dress that understands what that means. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about what people will say, about the gossip, about the questions. But I'm 83 years old, and I've learned that the opinions of small-minded people matter much less than the love we carry in our hearts. This dress represents the deepest love I've ever known. It represents hope and dreams and the courage to fight for what you believe in. Even though Samuel and I never got to have our wedding, our love was real, it was beautiful. It was worthy of celebration. And if Emma wears this dress, if she walks down the aisle in fabric that was chosen with such love, such hope, then maybe Samuel's and my story will have a happy ending after all. Maybe our love will finally get to be part of a wedding, even if it's 60 years late. I'm going to tell Emma the truth. All of it. About Samuel, about the dress, about the love that shaped me into the woman I became. I'm going to tell her that this dress is hers if she wants it, along with all the love and dreams it carries. And if she chooses to wear it, I'll be in the front row, watching her walk down the aisle in the dress I bought for my own wedding day. I'll be thinking about Samuel, about the love we shared, about the life we might have had, but I'll also be celebrating Emma's love, her courage, her happiness. Because love doesn't die just because it's inconvenient. It doesn't disappear just because the world isn't ready for it. It lives on, in the choices we make, in the way we treat others, in the hope we carry for future generations. Samuel Washington, wherever you are, I hope you can see this. I hope you know that I never forgot you, never stopped loving you. I hope you know that our love story isn't ending in this dusty attic, it's beginning again. In a new generation, in a young woman who's brave enough to love completely and openly. Maybe that's what love really is. Not just the feeling between two people, but the hope that love will find a way to survive, to continue, to bless the world long after we're gone. Emma doesn't know it yet, but she's about to become part of a love story that started 60 years ago. She's about to wear a dress that was chosen with more hope and more love than most people experience in a lifetime. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what love is supposed to do. Keep going, keep hoping, keep believing that somehow, some way, it will find its way to happiness. The dress waits, patient as ever, ready for its moment, ready to be part of a love story at last.